Hits and Crits. This video is brought to you by Asmodee.
What is up, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Today, Deep Dive Targaryen Season 7. It's finally here, and something else is here. Well, someone. Guess who? Vince is back. Vince, welcome.
Hey, welcome. Yeah, excited to show all the get a little bit more time to talk about the new season, what's up for Targaryens. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. We have a lot to cover. Targaryens got quite a few changes, but first we'll show you what's going to happen in this video. So we're going to talk about where the faction comes from, just to give some context. Then some NCUs have changed, some combat units have changed, and then we're going to draw some implications for the whole faction. And of course, we're going to offer you some lists to try out right at the beginning of Season 7 now. All right. Where does the faction come from, Vince? What can you put up for context here?
Yeah, so Targaryen was in a overall very good state in Season 6. So of course we had all those Blood Riders and the dragons were still very viable. So we were rather in a very good spot within the overall faction ranking, let's say. Not obnoxiously strong, I would say, but in a very good spot to even win tournaments. The only thing that maybe was a bit one-sided, like it's always has been, was that cavalry and dragons definitely were by far the major component of the Targaryen lists. So infantry was still something you would only add like sparingly into lists, but you would pretty much never see a fully fledged out infantry list. So this was where we came from in a yeah, as I said, very good state.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be important, of course, for those changes now, to keep all of this in mind. Let's look at the NCUs first. And we have an NCU here that I really, really like. And we talked about it before, that we like the model and everything, but we didn't play him in the last 2 seasons, probably, since his change. So let's look at first NCU change, Illyrio Mormont. What has changed, Vince?
Yeah, so yeah, back in Season 4, like since now he wasn't played because he was just something that you could use to replace something to heal, and now he still has he now has 3 tokens, so we can use his ability 3 times, and his ability is that we can influence. So, and whenever we influence, there's 3 modes we can choose from. So one is that this unit where we attach him heals 2 wounds. The other option is that this unit gains for melee attacks, it gains highest attack die value in Sundering. And the last option is that one enemy in short range of that unit becomes panicked and weakened. So that's a lot to unpack, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So and quite limited to 3 uses.
Yeah, and before that, when he had 2 tokens to basically do a little bit of burst heal, he wasn't used much. People just didn't value the 2 tokens enough. But on the other hand, 3 tokens would have been too much. So now he has 3 tokens, but he does some really different stuff. If you do a little bit of math here, he has 3 tokens. He can use one of them to heal 2 wounds. So that's 6 wounds that you can heal over the course of the game. And to be honest, you could say, well, 6 wounds over the whole game, is that worth 4 points? I think it is, because you will use his tokens in rounds 3 and 4 mainly, maybe in round 2, maybe in round 5, depending on when the action starts and the fighting. So, and I think if you have these wounds there, it's really nice to have these out, these 2 wounds, and he's kind of flexible as well. So if you end up not needing to heal, you can just use the token for Sundering or for Panicked and Weakened to really finish a unit off, and that's what Targaryens want, right? We want the Alpha Strike potential. We want to really kill a unit and just don't get hit back. So yeah, so probably a good NCU, and he's back. He's back in the roster, I think, and that's great. Great to have him back. All right, let's look at just look at the next one. What's the next one, Vince?
Yeah, next one is Pyat Pree. So this is the special one with that 6th NCU zone, which makes the opponent discard a card. And so for this one, we have to look a little bit closer what exactly changed. So before, he could replace any zone with this ability that the opponent has to reveal their card once and then has to discard a card at random. And he could once per game claim his special zone as a replacement. He would return one card to your hand from the discard pile. So now things have changed a little bit, but in a significant way. So now, once per game, he can use any zone on top of its effect itself without replacing it to gain one card back. And also, he can replace his own zone, which still makes the opponent discard a card, but now they have to play their cards revealed for the rest of the round. So, okay, what
Yeah.
does that? Yeah, let's try to parse what that means.
Yeah.
So, I think like there's some discussion about if that's strictly better or not. And I wouldn't say the word strictly because it's way too complex for that. But I personally prefer him. He wasn't really played much. He was a fun pick. He was a fun choice, but not really something you would see in competitive
Yeah.
lists too much.
In certain lists, like Mother of Dragons, and you would want to fish out some of those cards. Fire Made Flesh, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, and Skahas has some very nasty cards. You could like retreat them.
Queen's Law.
Yes, that's exactly. So, by what I really like about this change is that he's not so clunky anymore. Because, like, what's the real benefit from of his ability? That's definitely the return one card. The rest is pretty much just not really a strict advantage because that's just a 6th zone that anyone can use, and it's not really that strong of an effect. So, I really enjoy that the really good effect of his whole block of text is now something you can do at any time in any zone without replacing that zone. So you can even like just for an example, you could claim swords as a first player and take back fire and blood, and then use it right away on that attack to gain rerolls, for example. So this is and this could be done with any commander, right? So this is way more flexible. Before, you would have to first step onto that zone if it's even free, and then you have it in hand, and your opponent can see all that, and then there's another turn and all that. So this is so much more practical. It's a huge, I would say, quality of life change. So, and of course, speaking of quality of life, having your opponent reveal their hand for the rest of the round it's so much easier, especially for casual players who don't know like all the cards that opponents' factions have in their hand, and if they draw more cards within that round, the previous ability wasn't really that useful anymore. So I'm not sure if he's, let's say, good enough for whatever you might want to run him for, but I think he's much more playable, and I really enjoy that change.
Absolutely. And don't forget that 6th zone can be part of your game plan, right? You can just have something where you really, really need an NCU for the end of the round, like Kaith, for example. You know, if you want to save her for that last activation, and then now you can do it with 6 zones. It's much easier because the tactic board won't be full. The next NCU is Hizdar Zo Loraq, 14th of that noble name. Much respect to this newly changed NCU. Vince, what has changed?
Yeah, so he was barely played at all. He was one of our least used NCUs. He had like a lot of different effects that would trigger if any of our NCUs would claim a zone without replacing that. And now it's a bit simpler in that regard because it's all about his zone. So when he claims a zone, depending on which zone he claims, some effects happen. So on the crown, if that opponent that does a panic test also becomes vulnerable, the bag is pretty big. All other friendly units in short range of the unit targeted by the zone effect restore 1 wound or remove 1 condition token. Letters. So for letters, you place another type of condition token of the same effect on another enemy unit in long range. And on that special zone of Pyat, you draw another tactics card, but then have to discard 1 tactics card. Okay, so that's a lot of text, and we have to assess if that's strong. So in general, he has multiple options to place additional tokens, which, as we will see, that Mirri has got changed quite a bit. That's a welcome change. And also, I want to emphasize the strength of the bags zone, because if we manage to have some units close to each other, and some of them might have some wounds taken, or have, especially if they have condition tokens, this zone can become very effective. Like it's reasonable that some point in the game you have like 2 units in close range to that main target, and then we would remove 2 additional condition tokens. So that's definitely if the situation is right, that's quite a significant effect. So yeah, I would say he will be played much more because we lost Mirri pretty much. We will see that in a minute, and
Spoilers.
he provides quite a bit.
Okay, cool. Let's look at the one that you have mentioned. Poor Mirri. No.
Yeah.
Mirri Maz Duur has changed. So before she was, as you already said, she was almost an auto-include in all the lists. She was just so strong, one of the strongest NCUs in the game, probably. And sometimes it feels bad for your opponent also, because she could replace and dish out Panicked and Weakened. So 2 tokens at the same time, every single round, and you could just spread tokens everywhere. And it was a good defensive tool for Targs as well, who are kind of glass cannony, a bit squishy. So that Weakened token alone was great, but the Panic token also worked so well with our Alpha Strike idea of the identity of the faction. So she was just an amazing NCU. Plus, she would just trickle heal every time she would go on the zone and get that 1 wound. She was just amazing. And I'm so sad that she's changed now. But as I said, she was auto-include. So I can understand. And we Targaryens have to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. We get to use other NCUs now. She frees up, or her death frees up a spot in our NCU roster. I think, so what changed here is each time she claims a zone, you may choose, you can remove a token from a friendly unit and place it on Mirri's card, or you can remove 1 condition token from Mirri and place it on an engaged enemy combat unit. So this it's a bit tricky to do. It takes a bit of time to, just take a token first and then next round, put it on someone. It's kind of sluggish in a way. So yeah, not as flexible. I think we both agree that this makes her so weak that we guess that she won't see that much play anymore. Her other effect, the once per game, you can target a friendly combat unit and just revive a previously destroyed non-commander attachment. That's something that she's had in the past also, and this kind of reviving mechanic of attachments. That's cool to have in certain lists where you have a lot of attachments, and you can, put a double attachment into something because you can ignore attachment limits. So I like it, but I don't think it's enough to make her stand out for before other NCUs here. This also opens up place for her attachment, right? And her attachment is not bad in Targs, and it was not played at all because you already had her as an NCU, and of course you couldn't put her as an attachment. So I think we'll see her as a 1-point attachment much more. We're not going to look at her attachment now. Basically you have to roll a die and then you can heal or nothing happens or whatever. So I think we'll see her as an attachment. Still, she's not completely dead.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, now let's look at combat unit changes. That was it for the NCUs. And the first combat unit that we're going to look at is going to be the Unsullied Swordmasters. We've talked about that already in the teaser video. That was our hits and crits teaser we got from cmon. Thank you very much, cmon. Now let's still quickly look at that, Vince.
Yeah, of course. So quick recap. So they improved their armor saves from 4+ to 3+, and this Combat Mastery Resolve, which was kind of a semi-dauntless, is now changed to Counter-Strike. So of course, is a huge buff to already very, very solid unit. So I think we can just agree on that very quickly and rather look at the attachments that we can play with this unit. So of course, last season we all noticed that the Unsullied officer is like that go-to option for the Swordmasters that go down fighting plus Relentless really makes your opponent scratch their head if they really want to engage with that unit, hit back, because they will definitely slap back at least as hard. Of course, that attachment costs 2 points, so sometimes we might just have one, or if we maybe take multiple Swordmasters, we might not be able to afford multiple officers. So another option I want to bring up is Daario Naharis. Because he has those reckless strikes, so he gives critical blow and precision. Of course, that precision has overlap, so he pretty much just provides crit blow. And of course, if we miss, we take 1 wound, but the good synergy is, of course, that we always have those rerolls, and we cannot the opponent cannot use weakened, so these are like the 2 main conditions that are necessary to make use of those reckless strikes. And Dauntless is also very, very good, of course, for them, because with that 4 morale, they will likely pass those morale tests and then heal up nicely, which synergizes well with that higher armor value.
Yeah.
The last option I want to show, it also costs 2 points, so I'm not too sure if he really will make it instead of the Unsullied Officer is Gahath, because that Inside ability is quite nice, making sure that we always have those 8 dice, but of course the big one is Fueled by Slaughter, of course, because we have very nice armor saves now, they hit really, really hard, and so they might become a very, very a juggernaut unit, really.
Now, that was the one Unsullied unit, and here is the other Unsullied unit. They got changed as well. And they also got 3+ on defense now, which makes sense. Of course, they are the tanky Unsullied unit. And of course, they also need this 3+ if the Swordmasters get it. Their combat mastery also changed. Combat mastery defense was scrapped. And for that, they got unyielding, which is a kind of a general skill in the game. And it means that they suffer -1 wound from failing panic tests for each of their destroyed ranks. So the more damage they take, the more resilient they get to extra damage through the panic. And the rest is just the same. They're still an elite unit at 7. They hit on 7/7/4. So good, solid unit that was really suffering from a little defense for the role that they have. You know, they want to sit maybe on an objective or deny some space and get charged. But with the 4 defense, they would die much too quickly, especially against range attacks. So I think we agree that this is a good change. It's not making them super strong, but I think with the right tactic and the right attachments, these can be really cool.
Yep, I would agree. They definitely needed that armor save now that the Swordmasters have it.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at some attachments for them. And here we have Belwas. I'll do that one. You do the other ones, okay?
Yeah, sure.
So Belwas with Battle Scars. Battle Scars is a great ability. No matter what, I just like seeing Belwas. You know, he's not used as the commander, at least in the last couple of seasons. So I always like using him as an attachment at least. And you can choose each time you attack vicious, rerolls, or highest attack die value. But of course, the vicious helps them a lot with more damage potential, which they really, really need because they don't have any keywords themselves. So that vicious really helps. And rerolls is also great to give them more damage output. So I think Belwas is a cool attachment for them to make them a little more dangerous for your opponents. How about Jorah?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, as we can see with Jorah as well, he provides rerolls as well, which I think is essential for them, because otherwise that set for charge doesn't really threaten that opponent as much. And Jorah also provides a vulnerable token, so that kind of replaces the lack of keywords. And on top of that, he also has the stand your ground, so even your opponent will not get rerolls for that charge and might even lose the flank and rear bonus. So yeah, very solid choice for them, because in general, I would say they lack that damage threat regardless if they're set for charge attack or if it's actually them charging the opponent, they need some more threat. And so these rerolls and vulnerable tokens just help with that. If you want to go a completely different direction, you could also put in Marcelin, so he would embolden them to have 3+ morale saves and Dauntless, so they would heal pretty much every time they do any panic test without providing any damage improvements. So this would be your option if you just want to say, I want to put them on that point or in that choke or something, and I just want them to pretty much never die to anything that's reasonable. So might not be that typical Targaryen playstyle, but if you're looking for some fully tank unit, this might be your option. And of course, I want to say that the Unsullied Pikemen are a good commander bunker. Usually, for example, for Daenerys, we would consider the Bolton Blackguards because it was pretty much our only 3+ armor saves unit, and now the Pikemen, of course, can fill that role just as well and are really worth their point.
All right, let's look at the next unit, and that's something that's very sad. The Screamers. I'm sad. Vince, you have to do this one. I can't do it.
Yeah. So I will break it to you. The Screamers will lose their Furious Charge, so no more vulnerable tokens when they charge someone, which really removes some of their bite. Their immense punching power. Of course, they were considered very, very strong the last few patches, so it was expected they would get a little nerf at some point, and now it happened, which is, I think it's a reasonable nerf. They are definitely not dead or anything. It's just that they are, of course, they've become kind of a key unit in the Targaryen faction identity. So we really have to see how that plays out. So I think we will still see some Screamers, especially because our attachments, the Blood Riders, are still very, very strong. Some of the best attachments Cavalry can hope for. But yeah, we have to see. Don't pick that Screamer Co. I think he's called. That's another attachment which would give you that vulnerable token, but he's much worse than the Blood Riders. So we have to live what we have with, and yeah, I'm sure we will see some Screamers still. It's just that against some of the very, very strong units we see in other factions now, the buff has this patch has buffed quite a lot of units. They are even harder to kill now, and we've lost some of the punch. So this might be like a two-sided nerf, like the overall strength increase on top of that nerf.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to see how that works.
Yeah, indeed. There's still a good 6-point unit for us. So I think we'll still see them, but it hurts a bit. They were so identity defining. And I think it's actually one of the most impactful changes that for Targs. And yeah, it's fine. We've seen them a bit too much, so we'll see how it goes. Next up are the Hrakkars that got a bit of a buff. What happened?
Yeah, so they got another attack die from 5 to 6, and they got a little armor improvement from 6+ to 5+. In a vacuum, this is a welcome change. They were not played that much. It was pretty much only, okay, I have 4 points left. Why not take a little extra activation? But that's about it. So I think that attack die might be a bit more relevant. The armor save, they are still pretty much dead to whatever shoots or charges at them. So this is just how it is. But for 4 points, you cannot really complain in a vacuum. But I have my doubts that they have a strong place within the game right now. Especially that outflank ability is probably even less relevant now because there's Walder Frey NCU. We will talk about him a bit later. But he's a neutral NCU that can make so that infantry units can even turn on their activation. So all that shenanigans with I will just parking them kind of behind the opponent and scaring them doesn't really work.
They can't see you because of no line of sight, right? And they have to waste their activation.
and now that's completely changed. So I think they are pretty much just an activation and something we place on a point to score some score objectives, and maybe later in the game flank it, charge into the flank and try to finish off some units. That's about it.
Yeah, cheap activation for sure, as they were before.
Yeah.
But I'd like to try them out now.
Yeah, sure.
See how much bite they have. Okay. Next up, one of my favorite solos in the game, Jorah Mormont, the Wandering Knight. He got a slight change, and I think we have to talk briefly about where he comes from. He was an auto include in like season 4 and or something. So because he was just a really good activation, a cheap activation. And his scout openings was really strong and synergized really well with a lot of units, especially with Outriders or Veterans. So you would often see that combination of 8-point Veterans unit and Jorah Mormont. And that was just really strong because they could use scout openings and get precision and rerolls on a range attack. So that's really cool. And the Veterans would even get it for a turn, and they can attack twice in a turn. So that was really strong, and still is. But Jorah has not been picked a lot in the last seasons because he was nerfed and got a bit weaker. And also the game had things in it like Varys, Tywin NCU that could just one-shot him. And there was just a real liability. And you wouldn't see that really cool combination of Veterans and Jorah anymore because, you would spend a lot of points. You would spend 12 points on that combination alone, and your opponent could just Varys kill him instantly, and then that whole combination is gone. So that's the kind of the context. What happened now?
Yeah, so he got buffed from 4 points to 3 points. So that's a welcome change, and it's absolutely in line to what other solo units in other factions have received this patch. So this is quite expected. And also we see this a lot now as well, is that he can only take 1 panic wound max, which, well, it's a good backup, let's say. His morale is already extremely good, but now we don't have to worry about the crown zone pretty much at all anymore, so that's a welcome change. But what's much more impactful probably is that the Tywin bomb, that 6-point NCU from before, is, let's put it this way, he won't be played much, and he's far less dangerous if he's picked. So and Varys costs 5 points now for an extra token, so he's also, I would say, strictly worse, meaning we have less of those obnoxious effects that might just kill him round 1 without being like anywhere on the map. So on top of that extra point nerf, buff, of course, buff. I think he's definitely worth trying out. So we can take those Veterans plus Jorah combination for 11 points now, which is much more reasonable. And I'm excited to try it out. Of course, there are dangers like the spear throwers from the Giants, and Night's Watch will probably be played more. Yeah, so that NCU might still be a problem. But there are far less dangers. So if you play like a 2-list format tournament, you might have more opportunities to actually pick this list. Before, there were so many lists or faction matchups that were strictly impossible to play. So I'm really excited to try this one out, even if he might not be in any relevant competitive list. We will see about that.
And I think that's one thing that's really cool for Targaryens right now. You get options in list building, but you also need to make choices in list building a lot more. So you can decide if you want to have his attachment, which is really cool with tactical reposition, very worthwhile attachment for Cav lists, or if you want him as a solo. So and you can make these decisions, and that's what's fun about list building after all, right? Next up, Pit Fighters. This is something I'm really excited about. I'll quickly talk about the changes, and then maybe you can put it into context. So, so first, the Pit Fighters were not played a lot. Like I was going to say at all. I didn't, but probably I could have said at all in competitive, of course. So what they had was an attack profile of 764, which is reasonable, hitting on 3+, but they had only a 5+ defense, which against stuff like Sundering, like units with Sundering, makes them roll on 6s. And they only had a 6+ morale, which is perfectly fine in the game. It's a little worse than most Targaryen units, but it was fine. But their pit fighter rage, the order, would dish out the rainbow, right? All condition tokens, and you would have that rainbow on that unit that you charged, which is nice. But it also made them suffer 2 wounds. And I think that was the biggest red flag or no sell for them. It's just that danger of, hurting yourself. It was just too much. Unyielding was nice to alleviate some of that, but I think it wasn't enough, even for 5 points. Now their character has changed. Their unit type has completely changed. They became a different unit type. What up?
Yeah, so now they are pretty much I would say, the Berserker unit, because they have that Berserker playstyle with that unique, not unique, but for Targaryens definitely unique attack profile of 6, 7, 8. So they become stronger the more ranks they lose, and this also reflects on their order ability, because now when they attack, you can just put down one condition token, but plus 1 condition token for each rank you've lost. So on the last rank, you actually put down that rainbow still, without causing any wounds to yourself. And now this is a much more cohesive unit, I would say, much more thematic. So this is why I'm excited for this change, regardless if this actually becomes a highly relevant unit or not, because now that unyielding makes much more sense, because on that last 4 attack dice on that last rank, this was just so clunky. They still die to pretty much anything, because they're still very vulnerable, but at least they become more relevant as they take damage. So I'm very excited to try them out.
And you can make these really thematic lists with them, including the attachments, as we see here. So we have Belwas or Skahas, who both just thematically fit. Of course, especially Belwas. So how does his battle scars help here?
Yeah, so we've talked about battle scars before. So now we can, if they charge at full ranks, which might happen, they can still have their 8 dice already, because it's just as high as attack die, whatever rank that might be. And of course, they keep those, and they get those stacking effects with battle scars. So you even focus on that last rank power even more. So which makes it so thematic. Belwas is a pit fighter himself, so that's really cool.
And you didn't use him in them because there was no synergy. Or he was too expensive or whatever. But now, at least thematically, it makes a lot of sense to put the pit fighter leader into the unit. What else?
And of course, we already talked about Skahas. So Skahas also gives you that highest attack die, which has the same effect, that we can have those 8 dice right away if we want. And Vicious, of course, and he provides this fueled by slaughter. So when they're on the last rank, really slapping that opponent, we can even heal back, and this might become a real Berserker unit, very flavorful with that fueled by slaughter. Again, let's see how this works out, but I'm really excited to try those attachments.
Yeah, and especially in that combo. I mean, fueled by slaughter could push them up a rank higher again. Like you could, when you're already at 2nd rank and then you fueled by slaughter heal, and now you're at full ranks, you would only do 6 dice, but then with the order, it synergizes really well that you're still on 8. All right, good job. Good job, pit fighters. All right, and another really, really cool thematic unit. And probably the one that we both are most excited for in this patch, right?
Yeah,
Brazen
especially
Beasts.
if it comes to power level, let's say. They got among the, next to the Swordmasters, they probably got the largest buff. They were still a unit that was already played in Season 6, was absolutely fine and played in some lists.
Yeah, Skahas lists.
Yeah. And now they hit on 3+ instead of 4+, and they gain 1 attack die on their first 2 ranks. So on top of that motley armaments, which they still have, and that sentinel, this is a really, really solid unit now. the opponent really has to watch out for that Sentinel now, because Motley Armaments is so good since Season 6 with all those abilities due to those attachments and all that. And Sentinel is among the greatest orders in the game. So they are still very vulnerable, but if we put them in the right place, that Sentinel becomes relevant without being in danger, the opponent really has to scratch their head not to get a charge, especially in the side, because they without any attachment, it's already 8 dice with crit blow and losing all abilities, which can be significant for many units. You don't want to take that.
And for 5 points, right? And with the 6 movement. So really, really cool.
Yeah, this is why pit fighters might not be seen as much in competitive play, simply because the Brazen Beasts are extremely good now.
In the same point slot, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're competing with the Brazen Beasts,
both,
which is difficult.
Yeah, they are both fragile infantry units.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the attachments. This is pretty much unchanged from last season. Grey Worm, which costs 2 points, is still, if you have the points, the default for me. He was already what you would use in Season 6, because Bolt is Encouraged now increases him to 9 dice on full ranks if we use that crit blow. And of course the Rally Cry is really nice with that Sentinel, of course. A unit of you gets attacked, and they will sooner or later charge into that unit and heal up your unit. So that's really nice. And of course their own attachment, the Brazen Beast Captain, is very solid. Just making sure that we have this Furious Charge, which we lack on our Screamers. At least it's on the Brazen Beasts. So of course there are other attachments which are absolutely fine as well, but these are again the ones I would consider first.
Yeah, absolutely great. And with the Brazen Beast Captain, they give out the vulnerable, they have critical blow, they have vicious, so they have all these keywords and stuff, and it's just crazy.
For 5 points. And we have Sundering in our tactics deck and on Illyrio. So if we slam the flank and then with Sundering, they can absolutely annihilate some units. And we're still talking about 5 points here, so that's big.
Yeah, really good. Definitely a unit that might get weakened, but then with critical blow, that's always a gamble.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we might get lucky with that weaken. Thank you very much. All right. So we're through with the NCUs, with the combat units. We're done with the changes. Let's talk about the big picture for House Targaryen. We've hinted at a lot of stuff, but let's summarize it.
Yeah. So we will try out more infantry. We will see that's never really worked out for Targaryens, but I think this everything leads towards now being the best time to really leverage infantry.
Now or never.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I also want to emphasize that, for example, Khal Drogo is still among our best commanders. I'm very certain of that. The Blood Riders themselves didn't get nerfed, the attachments and the unit itself. So yeah, don't feel forced to play infantry. We should just try out those different styles. What else? Of course, I want to mention Walder Frey again. He's the neutral NCU, which really he could be very problematic for our faction, to be honest, because he makes sure that infantry can actually turn at the start of your activation. And this really limits our possibilities to stay behind opponents. Of course, we can charge through something with right by attack or with a dragon or so, but we won't be as safe behind enemy lines anymore. And that's this might be highly impactful. We might really have to adapt to that, and this might even further push this infantry playstyle, because we can have some grindy units now with the Unsullied. And the Brazen Beasts are not grindy, but they are really, really strong infantry unit as well. So I think it's a very interesting time for Targaryens. We definitely have to do some internal rebalancing now. I don't think Targaryen is in a bad shape overall compared to other factions, but we will have to adapt quite a lot. Like the playstyle we used last season might not really work this time. We can't just keep doing exactly what we did. And I think that's very interesting, and I hope it plays out well for in terms of performance and also in terms of fun. It's a bit too early for me to say.
Yeah. But you know, even if we can't play, just keep doing what we did last time. You won't stop me from trying. I'll just play my calf list and then just get obliterated maybe. But that's how we learn.
And I want to spend like 2 sentences on dragons. They didn't get changed at all. So they were very, very strong in season 5. They were still very, very solid in season 6. But I think there's some increase in power level for many factions, and they didn't receive, let's say, anything since season 5. So don't expect them to be that great this season. Again, this is something we have to try out.
Okay, and of course, at the end of this video, we've brought 2 lists that we've created. First list that we're going to look at is an Unsullied heavy list. Let's go.
Yep.
Vince, tell us.
Yeah, so a little disclaimer, we don't promise any competitive high power list here. It's mostly just let's try out new stuff that looks fun that we didn't really get to use before and see what those changes really make for the Targaryens. Yeah, so Grey Worm Commander was something we saw occasionally before, but as a very techy piece, and now I think with all this infantry shift, we will see him more, and I hope he will stay. So we put them in the new super tanky pikeman because he has this issue commands card. So when he activates, another unit can attack or charge. So with the pikeman, we don't really have to do the attacking ourselves. We can just stay in the middle and watch out and tank for the other units. And with that issue commands and all that, we can really make sure that those Unsullied Swordmasters, which we picked 2 of, one of with the officer, of course, and the other one, because we are 1 point short, taking a Dario, which I also said with the crit blow can be really, really dangerous. We can really try out if this Unsullied focus playstyle really works out. Of course, a ranged unit just for good measure. Baristan didn't get changed, so he's of course still one of our best NCU choices.
And needed against a lot of factions, yeah.
Yes, of course, there are many strong cards and abilities around. So he protects, he attacks. He's just one of our best options.
Awesome.
The new Hizdar is kind of for this list the replacement for Mirri, because we noticed that he can spam some tokens depending on which zone he goes, or he can improve the healing. So these are both things that this list might utilize. And Pyat Pree is, well, he's one of the options, let's say, because either we could pick Quaith, who might not want to go onto the tactics board, or we have to maybe, we try out Pyat Pree in this case. So because I mentioned issue commands, we could pick up issue commands again, which could be very viable. There are some other cards as well. I mentioned that we can pick up Fire and Blood right before an attack when we take swords, for example. So I'm excited to try this one out. As I said, it's a good list to get a feel for our new capabilities and to rate which units we might pick in the next season.
Great. But dude, there are no Brazen Beasts. What kind of list is that in season 7, man? Let's look at the other one.
Yeah, I think we have to look at the other one. So here we have our Marcelin list. Of course, Marcelin is quite a popular commander already because he can create extra activations with his Freedman spawning ability. This is why we, of course, pick Missandei, because then we can cheat this card into our hand right away to make sure we get those activations early.
We need to.
Yeah, we really want those. Of course, we picked Hizdar again as one of our options because he heals, he makes tokens, of course, and of course we want to try out the new Illyrio because he's so flexible. He's our Swiss Army knife with healing and sundering and all that, dishing out tokens. So I think he's a solid choice here. And we put Marcelin in these Brazen Beasts, which are of course very, very, very strong, and Pit Fighters with Belvers, and it's of course we picked the new Jorah in combination with the veterans, because with this list we have effectively 9 activations once we spawned our freedmen, and so this gives very much room for the veterans to take the last activation and really get the work done. So this is what this list tries to achieve. And there's one more trick up our sleeves in this list, because Marcelin brings the supply aid tactics card. So with this card we can take up to 3 wounds from one unit and heal up to 3+1 on another unit. So what we could actually do is, at the start of the friendly turn, play this card right before we want to attack with our pit fighters, and we can actually take their wounds and go down a rank maybe to improve their strength. I'm not sure if that's really something we will do every game, but I think it's a nice trick that the opponent might not see coming, that they might actually have an extra attack die or something, and of course that extra token they will then place. So and of course they like sneaking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, these are like the little tricks this list might be able to do, and I think with these 2 lists I will try those lists right away when this new season drops, and to get a quick feel of how those new options perform and how I will use them in this season.
Yeah. Okay. So your first game you play with the first list, and your second game in this season you play with the second list, and then you have a good feel for all those. Of course, Cav lists are still there, and a lot of units. And you didn't use Kaith. I think Kaith is a really strong unit for Targs right now, especially with all the movement that can happen in the game now. We mentioned Wall of Frey. So yeah, I think if you go start building competitive stuff, then you will still see Kaith in a 2-list format for sure.
Yes.
Great. All right. Vince, that was it. We talked quite a lot, but there were already a lot of changes. So I think it's warranted, and I hope everybody was able to stick with us and see where this went. And I hope these lists that we provided and the info is helpful to get you a little start now for season 7. And of course, we're really early. We're recording this the day after the patch came out, basically. So we're not super into the meta. The meta hasn't developed.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I think we're also excited, just like you are, to see where this goes.
Yeah,
right.
Especially I would like to know in the comments, like, how do you see this transition for Targaryens from pretty much strictly cavalry to this new hybrid style we might have to look out for? So I'm excited for your thoughts, especially if you've had maybe like 1 or 2 games already, because I'm sure Targaryens feels very different now in the whole scheme of the game.
Great. Then we're done, and there's nothing more to say. Then roll those crits.
Bye.
Come for the hits and stay for the crits.